Good afternoon, and welcome to the Western Energy Markets Governing Body General Session. Please note that today's call is being recorded, and currently all of our attendees are in a listen-only mode to reduce background noise. There will be an opportunity for public comment throughout today's call, at which point we will give you all instructions on how to enter the comment queue. With that, I'd now like to formally begin today's call and turn it over to Chair Rebecca Wagner. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Silas. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Western Energy Markets Governing Body General Session. That's a mouthful, but I couldn't think of a shorter way to say it. I'll start off with an introduction of our newest governing body member, Deborah Smith. Member Smith is a respected leader in the energy industry with nearly 30 years experience, most recently with Seattle City Light as the CEO. Member Smith, welcome to the governing body and stakeholder world. Meet Deborah Smith.
Thanks, it's great to be here, and I'm super excited to work with all of you going forward during this incredibly important time. So glad to be here, and I, again, look forward to meeting more of you in person.
And continuing on with our line of good news, earlier this month, Public Service of New Mexico officially joined or committed to join the extended day-ahead market. Our momentum continues to build, and we look forward to more entities joining later this year. With the addition of PNM, the Pathways Step 1 governance change has been triggered. Our meeting today marks the evolution of the WEM's governance structure from joint authority to primary authority. So what this means in a nutshell is decisions and deliberation will be made at the governing body meetings, and the ISO Board of Governors will take up our issues on a consent agenda at a separate meeting. We'll be hearing more about the plan, at least the initial plan of how this will work going forward. It will be a work in progress as we continue to find ways to collaborate and build our collegial working relationship with the Board of Governance. We want to keep those connections as well as honor the autonomy that we are granted with this triggering of Step 1. On a housekeeping note, we have new assignments for our governing body committees and working groups. Vice Chair Andy Campbell will serve on the Department of Market Monitoring Oversight Committee and on the Pathways Formation Committee. Member Decker will serve as the RIF representative, and she is also on the Pathways Formation Committee. Member Kanzioka will serve on the Market Expert Working Group, and I will serve on the Nominating Committee. With that, I just want to thank all of our stakeholders who have joined us today. We appreciate your participation in our meetings and our stakeholder processes. I will turn it back to Roger Collington to start off the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair Wagner. You missed a very important moment as well, as that is just your first meeting as chair. And so we're thrilled to have you as the chair, and welcome to Deborah Smith. And with that, I will do my official roll call. So Chair Wagner.
Here.
Vice Chair Campbell.
Here.
Member Decker.
Here.
Member Kanzioka.
Here.
And Member Smith. Deborah.
Here, thank you.
Okay. All present and accounted for. We have a quorum. We may continue. The next item we have, which Silas covered, was for the public comment process, and that is that we have two types of public comment. One is the general public comment that's coming up briefly, and that is for matters that are not particularly agendized. And then there's also an opportunity during many of the agenda items for public comment as well. And the operator, Silas, will provide instructions when we get to those points. And that's what I have. My script here tells me to go back to you, Chair Wagner, but I may as well just go ahead and check for general public comment, or however you would like to proceed, since this is your show and it's your first time.
Well, I'm glad we got that squared away, Roger. let's go ahead and move to public comment and you can do the transition for us. Thank you.
That sounds great. Okay, so Silas, if you could check and see if there is anybody in the queue that would like to make general public comment.
If you would like to speak under general public comment, you can please press the raise hand icon at the bottom center of your Zoom screen, or if you are dialed into the phone only line, you may press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the comment queue. At this time, I'm not seeing any hands up in the comment queue.
Thank you, Silas. Back to you, Chair Wagner.
Thank you for checking on public comment. And we'll move to our decision on our general session minutes from our June 18th, 2025 meeting. Roger?
Yeah, thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the June 18th, 2025 WEM governing body minutes?
So moved.
This is Rob. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question to you, Deborah. So thank you. As I said that, it's like, we have one new member that wasn't here that date. So, but the motion is approved and Deborah has abstained. Back to you, Chair Wagner.
Thanks, Roger. As I noted in my opening remarks, we're going to do a little bit of an overview on primary authority, how we got here, what we think it means going forward, and what we know it means in terms of decisional processes. You'll have to bear with us. Each meeting in the future may be structured a little bit differently, but we are committed to figuring this out and being efficient for stakeholders, ISO staff, but still communicating and deliberating in a transparent manner. So I will turn it back to Roger to give us an update and a little background on primary authority.
Great. Thank you, Chair Wagner. As you mentioned, this is our first meeting where we have already met the primary authority trigger, the step 1 pathways trigger, with the addition of PNM's commitment. And it really represents an important milestone in the evolution of our governance that gives the WEM governing body the lead position in improving market rules for WEIM and for EDAM. And again, as I said, this is the step 1 of the pathways governance. And what this means is that the governing body having primary authority role is the first step with most of the substantive discussion of FERC initiatives for WEIM and EDAM market rules, rather than the joint authority role that we have been doing over the past, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years now. And the board still has a function, and that is it has a consent agenda, and that is how it meets its obligation or fiduciary duty and responsibilities in overseeing the organization. So from a process standpoint, what this means is that we made a few changes to the meeting process in order to add the primary authority. So generally, for those of you who have been following along for the past 4 or 5 years, we've had a 3-day meeting cycle for the governing body and the board meetings. And it's not always 3 days, but it's typically 3 days, depending on the size of the agenda, or if there are not agenda items for certain meetings. We don't always have all those meetings if we don't need them. But it typically includes a 3-day meeting with a first day, which is a governing body only general session meeting, a joint board and governing body session that would be on the second day, and a board only general session on the third day. Those are for the public meetings. Of course, we also have executive sessions mixed in. So what we're doing is maintaining the same basic 3-day cycle. With the move to primary authority, it does change how the proposed subject goes to the governing body, and that's what is being changed. So under the joint authority, proposals to change EIM and EDAM market rules came to the board and the governing body together, and now they're going to come with the primary authority. The first day of the meeting, it will be with the governing body, and then the governing body, as we have today in item number 6, if the assistance energy transfer, will consider and vote on the primary authority item. And then the joint meeting, generally, though we do not have one during this cycle, is scheduled to remain. We'll still have a joint meeting. There'll be a joint board and governing body general session, typically on day 2. This meeting will continue to include matters of general joint interest of the two bodies. We will also have the governing body chair give a report out at the day 2 general session meeting, if it in fact occurs, as to anything notable about the primary authority, that they considered it, if there was any changes to the proposed motion, things like that. But we recognize that this changes the level of detail that is in the joint authority meeting or the joint meeting. Those joint meetings previously for the last 4 or 5 years were containing all the joint authority items. So we will monitor this. We're going to kind of keep thinking about ways to make sure that we have meaningful meetings. And if we need to pivot and change, we will do that. After that, on the day 3 meeting, or again, whatever the right sequence will be, the board will have a consent agenda. And the consent agenda will be the opportunity for the board to vote, and presumably there's many options, or at least several options for the board. In that case, the board can just vote on the consent agenda. It'll be fully briefed. It'll have all the same material that it's always had on substantive initiatives. The board can decide to remove the item from the consent agenda and seek more substantive discussion. And if the board and the governing body ultimately don't agree as to how to, whether or not to approve the initiative, then there is a process that's going forward for dispute resolution. And that would mean in the initial phases of that, there's additional stakeholder proceedings to try to kind of drive to consensus. And ultimately, if we can't reach consensus, there is one of the new aspects and features of the Pathways Step 1 governance is that there is ability for both the governing body and the board to do filings at FERC. So there'd be a dual filing that would include the a proposal approved by the board and a different proposal approved by the governing body, and we would get FERC guidance as to selecting the appropriate proposal. I think it's important to note as well that there's no changes in this primary authority structure to the stakeholder process leading up to the board and governing body votes. And that's kind of the high-level summary. I'm happy to take questions and answer them as I can.
Thanks, Roger. Governing body members, questions, comments, reflections? I'm not seeing raised hand. Oh, Anita.
I saw Andy was before me.
Oh, and Andy just did not pop up on my screen. Okay. Member Campbell.
Thank you, Chair Wagner. Yeah, just a reflection. We're at an exciting point with the critical mass of balancing authorities in multiple regions committed to the extended day-ahead market. The stakeholders that came together through the Pathways process concluded that further progress really would require more independence in the governance of the market. And I would like, and that's necessary to get a widespread market footprint. And I would like to see EDAM to knit together the largest possible footprint. This move is going to give governing body primary authority. And this move is very much a step forward on that path. At the same time, I do want to find ways to continue the most constructive features of the joint authority process. Joint authority has worked well to ensure both boards are fully equipped to take action on decision items. We have also jointly deliberated policies. So I look forward to finding ways to continue the meaningful exchange of information and perspectives between the governing body and the ISO Board of Governors. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair Campbell. Member Decker?
Well, Roger, I really appreciate you kind of walking through the process. And to me, this is a really kind of a landmark point that we have primary authority. In terms of the joint meetings, I think that will remain to be determined when and where and how often we need to actually meet jointly, because if there's not issues and there's not contention, that may not be as necessary. While I do expect it to be collaboration just in terms of the collegiality between the two boards that's been developed. I do think the primary authority model will serve the market well, and I would expect that we will see a lot of growth in how the market continues to evolve as a result of the primary authority by the Western energy market. So yeah, I think there's still a lot to be determined as we go forward and what's needed and what's not needed and whether it's 2 days or 3 days. So I will conclude my comments.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you, Member Decker. Anybody else with comments, questions? Okay, great. Thanks everyone. Thank you, Roger, for walking through that. Elliot, would you like to provide us with your CEO report?
Happy to do so. And good afternoon, Chair Wagner and Vice Chair Campbell and members of the Western Energy Markets governing body. I would also like to start by adding my own welcome to Deborah Smith. Deborah, on behalf of all of us at the ISO, we really are just super pleased to have you in this new role and also look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead during, as you said, a very exciting time for our industry. We were also, of course, very pleased with PNM's announcement back on July 1st that they had signed their implementation agreement to join EDM in 2027. And we remain on track for EDM implementation with PacifiCorp in May of 2026 and with PGE later next fall. On the topic of congestion revenue allocation, when the ISO Board of Governors and WEM governing body approved our EDM congestion revenue allocation proposal back in June, we acknowledged that this was a short-term adjustment and pledged to continue working with our stakeholders on any needed refinements and a more sustainable longer-term design. I just wanted to emphasize that our team has already started that work and is planning to actively engage with stakeholders to evaluate additional enhancements and options for a long-term solution beginning in the October timeframe. In the meantime, we filed our proposed congestion revenue allocation tariff provisions with FERC on June 19th and requested a decision by September 18th. So hopeful to hear back from the Commission by September 18th. I'm really looking forward to today's agenda, including an update on the Regional Issues Forum from Vice Chair Lindsay Schleckaway. We'll, of course, be taking on the decision on the WEM Market Assistance Energy Transfers proposal. We'll be hearing, I think, really looking forward to participant updates from Tricia Blevins of Turlock Irrigation District and Paul Rodriguez of the Imperial Irrigation District on their decisions to join our energy markets. And then, of course, a briefing on gas resource management. I want to thank Lindsay again for participating in that session. We'll close with a briefing from Becky Robinson on our various policy initiatives underway. And as we all know, there's a lot happening on that front. I guess in conclusion, I will note that we're about halfway through summer. Really appreciate all the communication and coordination with our partners across the West so far. And of course, remain vigilant as we enter what is traditionally the most challenging period of the summer. But of course, it's always good to know that we've got the WEIM in place to support reliable summer operations. So that, of course, concludes my report today. Be happy to take any questions. With that, turn it back to you, Chair Wagner.
Thanks, Elliot. Any questions or comments for Elliot? And Elliot, just thank you. It's a side note, but the coverage in your report on wildfires, it's relevant, but not totally germane to our work, but I think it impacts everyone in the West. So I appreciate having that extra color in the report.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And we'll keep you posted, of course. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have an update from the Regional Issues Forum. In for Allie Mace, who could not be with us today, is Lindsay Scheckelway, Market Policy Director at NV Energy. And there you are. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, members of the governing body, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to share an update from the Western Energy Markets Regional Issues Forum. First, I would like to say congratulations to the governing body on the transition from joint authority to primary authority. Since the last update at the June 18th governing body meeting, the RIF has remained focused on advancing the RIF enhancements project. We have carefully reviewed and discussed stakeholder feedback and are actively collaborating to develop the draft final proposal as we move toward a finalized version. As we have shared at our June 17th meeting, stakeholders provided thoughtful and constructive comments, which continues to inform our work on the next iteration of the proposal. Looking ahead, the RIF is beginning to plan for a fall meeting, tentatively in the month of October. This meeting will include an update on the RIF enhancements project, and we are also considering additional topics of regional interest. We look forward to sharing more details on the agenda in the future. This includes my RIF update. Thank you for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Wagner.
Thanks, Lindsay. Governing body members, any questions? All right. Thanks for joining us, Lindsay.
Thank you.
And now we move on to our decisional item. This is so exciting. It's our first primary authority decision item. And I will turn it over to Roger to get us started.
Thank you, Chair Wagner. Yes, it is exciting, and seeing a lot of work and a lot of effort culminating in this new governance structure. And here we are. So first item of business is a public comment letter. We did receive a public comment letter that was addressed both to the board and to the governing body on this item, which is the decision on Western Energy Imbalance Market Assistance Energy Transfer Proposal. And that letter was from Avangrid, and that has been provided both to the governing body as well as to the board. And with that, let me turn it over to Anna McKenna, our Vice President of Market Design and Analysis, to get us rolling on a substantive basis.
Thank you, Roger. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, governing body members, and welcome, Member Smith, to the WEM governing body. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today Danny Johnson, our Manager of Market Design in the Market Design Group. He will be introducing to you and outlining the proposal for the Western Energy Imbalance Market Assistance Energy Transfer. Danny is taking a sip of water, and I see he's ready. So with that, I will turn it over to Danny.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Chairs Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, governing body members, I am presenting today on behalf of management, as Anna noted, a proposal regarding the assistance energy transfer feature in the WEIM. Can we go to the next slide? So explicitly, there's two changes that management is proposing. The first is to remove the December 31st, 2025 sunset provision for the assistance energy transfer feature. This will ensure that this valuable reliability tool does not expire at the end of this year. The second change is proposing to create an exemption such that surcharges will not apply to any WEIM transfers that arise following the coordination between a WEIM balancing authority and the reliability coordinator that are taken for the purposes of maintaining reliable operations. And I have additional context for what this proposed change entails later in this presentation. Can we go to the next slide? But before we get there, it's worth covering some background. So as you are likely aware, prior to participating in the WEIM, each balancing authority area is tested for their ability to meet their own capacity and flexibility needs, such that no balancing authority area would then be unequitably participating in the market. This is known as the WEIM Resource Sufficiency Evaluation, or RSE. The default penalty for a failure of this test is the limitation of transfers for the BAA who has failed. But as an alternative to this default penalty, the assistance energy transfer feature offers the ability to continue to receive transfers through the market at an economic surcharge. This economic surcharge is designed to continue to provide an incentive for a balancing authority area to come to the market resource sufficient. So the intent of the product, as I mentioned, is to provide an alternative market-based way to provide emergency energy assistance to balancing authority areas who may be in stressed operating conditions. This feature uses the CAISO's market optimization to efficiently identify available capacity that is able to be delivered over unloaded transmission to a balancing authority area in need, and does represent a market improvement from the traditional system operator to system operator emergency energy coordination. This change was stakeholdered in 2022. It was approved through joint governance in December of 2022 and was implemented on an expedited basis prior to the summer of 2023 operating season. Can we go to the next slide? So back to that first change. It is to eliminate the sunset provision, ensuring that this feature doesn't expire. It's a pretty simple change in the tariff. It is literally just striking out the December 31st, 2025 sunset provision. The ISO and management in this case believes this is a reasonable proposal, as it will ensure that this feature, which is widely supported, broadly used, and has increased reliability in the Western interconnection, does not expire. This does not, however, preclude the ISO from working with stakeholders on future refinements. The existing design is an ex post settlement. This means that the surcharge is applied after the market is cleared. When this design choice was originally made, it was made with the understanding that future refinements to the proposal may be warranted. The stakeholder process revealed that significant outstanding policy decisions would have to be worked through, and technology enhancements would be necessary to directly implement the assistance energy transfer product within the market clearing process. Now, management still believes that pricing the assistance energy transfers directly into the market does represent an improvement to the efficiency of ISO administered markets. At the same time, it's the status quo when it comes to reliability. The existing design that we are asking you to proposing that you extend offers the same reliability benefits of any enhancements we would look to make. Ultimately, stakeholders to date have prioritized other market design enhancements as providing more immediate benefit. So while the ISO remains committed to further product refinements, it plans to undertake said refinements according to the prioritization of our stakeholders. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. So the second element of the proposal is the interplay between the assistance energy transfer feature and reliability actions. So management is proposing to create an exemption for the assistance energy transfer surcharges that are due to actions taken when working in coordination with the reliability coordinator. The ISO is constantly monitoring the performance and usage of this product. And in that monitoring, it has observed instances where the surcharge has been applied following this type of coordinated reliability actions, specifically unscheduled flow mitigation actions. This means the balancing authority in question was working with their reliability coordinator to curtail schedules to manage potential transmission security violations across their system due to network power flow. This resulted in or exacerbated an RSE failure, which came with surcharges. The ISO believes that, or management believes that this exemption will ensure that balancing authority areas are not compelled to weigh any potential surcharge liabilities against reliability-driven actions, which is the underlying intent of the assistance energy transfer feature. Can we go to the next slide? When this was stakeholders universally supported this proposal. All comments received by the ISO were in support of removing the sunset provision that applies to the existing assistance energy transfer feature. Some stakeholders asked why the ISO didn't extend the sunset or what the ISO's plans would be to make future product refinements, but As I mentioned earlier, we remain open to doing this, but would look to do this according to the prioritization of our stakeholders. Second, stakeholders did directionally agree with the exemption for reliability coordinated actions, but requested a better understanding of how the exemption would be applied, mechanically how it would be applied, which types of actions it would be applied to. And management is committing to specify the relevant scenarios within its business process manuals to which this will apply. Can we go to the next slide? So in conclusion, management is recommending the approval of the WEM Assistance Energy Transfer Proposal. This removes the December 31st, 2025 sunset provision for the Assistance Energy Transfer and feature. The proposal also creates an exemption for assistance energy transfer surcharges that arise following the coordinated actions between a WEM balancing authority area and the reliability coordinator. And finally, this proposal has been broadly supported by stakeholders as it enables balancing authority areas to continue to leverage the WEM market's efficient dispatch to enhance their reliability and the reliability of the Western interconnection. That concludes my presentation, but I would be happy to take any comments.
Thank you, Danny. Any comments or questions from the governing body? We'll start with Member Kanzioka and then Member Decker. Rob,
Yeah, I got the warning on my screen as well. It's so easy to do. Danny, thank you for the presentation and for not only the thoroughness, but highlighting some really important elements there. And I appreciate your clarifications on future next steps, because that was something that was pretty clear in some of the comments that were provided on this initiative. The one clarification question I have for you deals with instructions from the RC. And I just wanted to ensure that in this proposal that it doesn't matter which RC is providing instructions, that the waiver applies regardless, that if it's a reliability action that's being taken at a request of an RC, then that waiver is granted and there is no penalties.
Yes, I can confirm that is correct. The exemption would be to the WEM balancing authority area, irregardless of which reliability coordinator they are taking service from.
Danny, thank you very much.
Sure.
Member Decker.
So I just want to say that I appreciate that this came before us sooner than the end of the year. And I'm glad to see that the sunset is being removed. We've seen the uptick in the use of the AET, and I think it's an important tool in the toolkit. So thank you to staff. Thank you to stakeholders who supported this change. And yes, there's a little bit of work to continue on, but this is a good move. So I really appreciate all the work that's gone to get this moved to now instead of waiting until the end of the year. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Member Decker. Any other governing body members want to make comment? Not seeing the little hands. We will turn it to, and I don't see him up yet, Department of Market Monitoring, Eric Hildebrandt.
Hey, let's see, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Good afternoon, Chairman Campbell, governing body members. Thank you for the opportunity to share DMM's views on the proposal to extend the AET transfer option for the WEIM. This is an issue that DMM has been closely involved with as part of the market design process and also through our monitoring and reporting on the resource sufficiency tests and the AET option since it's been in place the last 2 years. As Danny explained, under the initial EIM design, whenever balancing areas failed the RC, net EIM transfers into those areas were capped at the levels of transfers occurring when the failure occurred. This limitation was adopted to deter balancing areas from tending to lean on the WEIM footprint for capacity when making its resource planning, procurement, and scheduling decisions. After EM was implemented, we did not see much evidence of this type of leaning, but concerns were raised that freezing transfers to balancing areas that are short in capacity could be detrimental to overall Western reliability. So to address this issue, the ISO worked with stakeholders to develop the AETA option. And under this option, as Danny explained, areas failing the RC can essentially get access to additional energy, but they pay a higher price through a surcharge applied in the settlement process. We supported this approach back in 2022 as really striking a good balance between allowing areas with excess capacity to provide assistance to other areas while still maintaining a disincentive for balancing areas to lean on the WEM footprint for capacity. So over the last 2 years, DMM has closely monitored and provided detailed analysis of how the AET option has seemed to be working. And over this time, our analysis has not indicated that any balancing area has systematically relied on the AET functionality to meet capacity shortfalls. In addition, we've identified very few intervals where 2 or more balancing areas simultaneously fail the test while opting in to receive energy transfers. So this was a concern that, perhaps on a peak day, a west-wide peak day, you would get multiple areas failing at the same time, and that could create a threat to reliability. So participation in this option is voluntary. So another issue we looked at was how many BAAs would opt in and under what conditions. We found that participation in the AET, I think it's grown over time and become fairly broad in terms of the portion of BAAs opting in and how often they've opted in. However, as I mentioned, the frequency and magnitude with which these areas actually relied on AET energy has been quite limited. Let's see. So the other issue that was identified was this issue of economic displacement. This arises because the charges for AET are applied after the fact rather than being incorporated directly into the real-time dispatch. And I guess, in addition to being a lot more complicated, there were some issues in terms of how this would actually be implemented. So the ISO has done some analysis showing that economic displacement has been fairly limited. And again, this reflects the fact that reliance on the AET energy has been limited as well. We support the ISO's proposal in terms of basically extending the current approach, as well as the exclusion that they're adding for dispatches or instructions from a reliability coordinator. Okay, so that was it. And I'm glad to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions from the governing body? All right, not seeing any. I think next we are moving to public comment. Silas, can you instruct our virtual attendees on how to make public comment?
If you would like to make a public comment, please press the raise hand icon at the bottom center of your Zoom screen. Or if you are dialed into our phone-only line, you can please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the comment queue. We do have 2 hands up in our comment queue so far. Scott Renzel, you have been sent a prompt to unmute yourself. You can please go ahead, sir.
Hi, this is Scott Renzel. Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Western Energy Market Governing Body members, including our newest member, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Scott Renzel with Pacific Gas and Electric Company. I am here to offer PG&E support for the proposed changes to the Assistance Energy Transfer Mechanism. Continuing this practice of providing assistance to others when available, accessible, and priced to discourage extended reliance on it has been successful and helps ensure we continue to reliably serve our customers. The modifications to charging due to the reliability coordinator actions are reasonable as well. We encourage the CAISO and DMM to continue monitoring of this effort as they have done to date very successfully. Thank you for doing so. And thank you for the opportunity to speak today and offer PG&E support for this initiative. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay. We do have one more hand up in our common queue. Lauren Carr, you've been sent a prompt to unmute yourself. You can go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Western Energy Markets governing body. This is Lauren Carr from the California Community Choice Association. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. First, just wanted to say a quick welcome to Member Smith and congratulate everyone on reaching the Pathway Step 1 milestone. Regarding the proposal, CalCCA supports the ISO management's recommendation to remove the sunset date on the existing assistance energy transfer design and create a surcharge exemption for actions coordinated with the reliability coordinator. The data provided during the stakeholder process suggests that the assistance energy transfer mechanism is being used as intended and with relatively small frequency and magnitude. Therefore, developing an alternative AET product doesn't appear to be a priority at this time, and we feel that the existing mechanism is functioning as intended. For these reasons, CalCCA respectfully asks for your approval of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Silas, anybody else in the queue?
Nope, there are no further hands up in our common queue at this time.
Great, thank you. Turn it over to Roger. Commissioner, it's hard for me to break that habit. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair Wagner. I did have just a comment before the vote. Is this the right time for that?
We'll get there. We'll do that.
Yes, yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. Is it's probably a good time before we go to a vote. Let's go ahead and check with the governing body if you have any further thoughts or comments on this initiative before we take it to the vote. So that would be with you, Commissioner Campbell.
Well, I just want to say I support this proposal. The program is achieving its primary goal of encouraging resource efficiency while keeping EIM entities in the market. Monitoring by the DMM and CAISO staff show that participating balancing areas are not abusing the program or endangering reliability. Finally, the extension of the Assistance Energy Transfer Program is a very sensible way to manage limited staff and stakeholder resources. The program could be improved, but other initiatives are more vital at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Campbell. Any further comments from the governing body?
Chair Conzioka, or Chair, gosh. Member Conzioka.
Thank you, Chair Wagner. Yeah, just a few comments on this. Unlike our decision last month on CRA, which really had just significant input on the initiative, this initiative here has received just really strong, simple support. And that wasn't always the case. I really appreciate the comments that were provided to us by David Rubin of NV Energy. And he reminded us some of the history. And when this initially got proposed, it was not widely supported. In fact, many will recall it was very difficult to get this moving forward. And it took a lot of support by both the governing body and the Board of Governors to keep it moving forward and have it considered. And it wasn't that it was not appreciated or thought it was a good idea, but at the time, it thought that there were many more important things to be done. And I think that the last 3 years have shown us that this has been a very valuable tool. It's been an important tool. And it's a good time to reflect that we need to think these things through when looking at how we move the market forward and make things work well. And I would go out on a limb saying of all the various initiatives that have been out there, especially with respect to how the market can support reliability, this would probably rank up as number one. And as we heard from DMM, that it's been used judiciously. And I think that member Decker will recall that prior to this going forward, that we heard a lot about how we had the appropriate use of resource efficiency for those who were not meeting resource efficiency. And I think the general conclusion by both the Board of Governors and the governing body was this was not the time to restrict the market from helping out where it could. And so with the proof being how well it's worked and with the explanation that Danny Johnson gave us on moving forward, I wholeheartedly support this this decision and will vote yes on it.
Any other governing body members want to make a comment before we move on with our voting duties? All right, Roger.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Move that the WEM governing body approves the Western Energy Imbalance Market Assistance Energy Transfer Proposal as described in the memorandum dated July 15, 2025, and move that the WEM governing body authorizes management to make all necessary and appropriate filings with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to implement the changes proposed in this proposal, including any filings that implement the overarching initiative policy, but contain discrete revisions to incorporate commission guidance in any initial ruling on the proposed tariff amendment. And let me just explain, because you haven't had the fun of that second paragraph as the board does. That is necessary due to a FERC order a few years ago that basically said that if they come back on a compliance obligation, they won't just approve the measure, so that it could in certain circumstances require us to make an additional filing that still fits within the policy that's being approved, but is warranted under commission guidance. So we added that to our motions with the board, and I realized as I was reading that you haven't had the pleasure of hearing that probably in your regular duties, and maybe in the joint authority you may have, but I just wanted to make sure that was clear to anyone that was wondering why that was in there. So with that, if I can get a motion.
So moved. This is Rob.
Second.
Seconds, Anita. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion has been approved. Thank you, governing body members.
Thanks, everyone. We just completed our first primary authority duty and vote on a topic that it's something that bolsters and helps the market and improves reliability. So good job, everyone. Thank you for not making it controversial. Next up, we have participant updates regarding decisions to join EDAM and or WEIM. First, we will have Turlock Irrigation District and Tricia Blevins, who's the Energy Markets Department Manager, will join us for an overview from Turlock. Do we have Tricia Blevins in the queue?
Did we have a change? My note says it was going to be Lindsay. No.
Trisha Blevins has joined us an attendee. I'm sending her a prompt that she can be joined to a panelist now.
All right, can you hear me now?
Hi, Tricia. Thanks for joining us. We can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Again, Tricia Blevins, Energy Markets Department Manager for TID. So starting here, just a little bit about TID for those that may not know. We were established in 1887 as the first irrigation district in California. We are located in the Central Valley, which my best friend lovingly calls the belly button of California. So I try to tell people we're right between like Fresno and Sacramento. Our electrical service area is 662 square miles, and our irrigation service area is about 307 square miles. We are our own balancing authority, and our peak load came in September of 2022 with about 735 megawatts. So it's a little bit about TID. The location will get a little bit more important as we move through our slides. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start really TID and the success that we've had with the Western Energy and Balance Market. And TID was a little bit late to the game for the WEM. We didn't join until 2021. And when we did, we saw great success, even though our implementation came right as COVID hit. So here we are getting ready to implement this new market. COVID hits, we're all sent home, and our full implementation happened during COVID with everybody working from home. To date, we've seen through Q1 of 2025, $29.04 million in benefits compared to the $6.99 billion as the whole for Western Energy. Again, the benefits to TID, obviously the economic benefits we see here, reliability benefits by being able to pull resources and get greater visibility into what's happening in the West, and then the renewable integration, all important to TID. Next slide. So why EDAM and why now? So again, TID was really late to the game for joining EIM. Now here we are much earlier coming in for EDAM, and multiple reasons. One, our success from EIM really helped us give some confidence in the market moving forward. Number two, we're seeing that changing landscape. Again, I see these two maps. You see the little green and that's left in California there, that's TID. So you can see that our location, we're in California and surrounded completely by EDAM participants. So as we see the markets develop in the West and we see EDAM and we really see Markets Plus coming into play, TID needed a home, and EDAM really made sense from just a locational standpoint for us and the success we've had with EIM. Furthermore, maintaining the status quo of EIM only, we were really worried about bilateral markets, particularly in the day ahead, starting to dry up and really limiting the use of our resources. And so this was another driver for TID. And finally, another reason for 2027 and is to target that same go live with Bank, since we will have seams issues to work out there. And as we're both going through implementation, this makes the most sense for us, for Bank, as well as for CAISO, to really be able to work on those issues simultaneously instead of during different implementation periods. Next slide. So again, just the extended day ahead market, we really do think that as we're able to offer both our loads and our resources to participate in the market, this allows TID to have the greatest optimization of our resources within the EDAM footprint and to really leverage EDAM and EIM to work together to, again, give us those economic benefits, the additional reliability, and the environmental benefits that come along with with pulling the resources in the Greater West. And I think that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Trish. I'll pause here for questions from the governing body. Member Kanzioka.
Thank you. Tricia, I don't really have a question. I just want to make sure and I thank you for being with us here today. Hearing your reasons for joining and moving forward is very helpful. And I think it's exciting to see that even though you like to consider yourself small, an important key cog in making this whole system work the way it really is intended to work and having a more integrated, homogeneous market. And it's exciting that you're going to be joining along with Bank, and we look forward to working with you. So thank you.
No, thank you.
All right. Silas, can you check to see if Paul Rodriguez has been able to join? I realize we are zipping through the agenda. And maybe not everybody is prepared to keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't see Paul Rodriguez's name in the attendee or the speaker list, but if he is here under a different name, you can press the raise hand or the #2 just so I can know that you're here, Paul. But I don't see anybody named Paul Rodriguez on the call right now.
Okay. So Roger, as our corporate secretary, do we want to table this item before we go to public comment and then come back to it when Mr. Rodriguez can join us?
Yeah, I think we could do that. And we could do a couple of things. We could do that. We could take a short break if someone wants to reach out to Paul or has reached out to Paul. But I don't really want to elongate things if we don't have to. So maybe we could move on to the next agenda item and then, like you say, circle back.
Okay, sounds good. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is our Spotlight Initiative. It's the Gas Resource Management Initiative. And I believe I'm turning it over to Anna for an introduction.
Yes.
Well, this is Anna. Good afternoon again. And we will be giving you a briefing on our Gas Resource Management Initiative. And just as a reminder, these spotlight moments are an opportunity to brief you on where we are at with our ongoing stakeholder initiatives. We also have some members of the public and stakeholders who will be commenting today as well. I have the pleasure of introducing Danny again. He'll be doing the briefing today. And with that, I'll ask Danny to start on his briefing.
Thank you, Anna. Once again, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell. I'm going to be presenting on behalf of management. This time, as Anna mentioned, it is a briefing on the Gas Resource Management Initiative. Can we go to the next slide? So this initiative arose in response to stakeholder concerns and questions about how day-ahead gas procurement would work in a broader regional market. These concerns were first discussed in a working group, which has since transitioned into a formal stakeholder initiative, where the ISO and stakeholders are considering market rule changes to ensure that all regional entities can successfully participate in all ISO administered markets. It's really looking to solve two different problems. The first is the market-wide unit commitment issue. Right now, a potential EDAM balancing authority area is formulating their own day-ahead operating plan. This means they are figuring out which resources they need to have online to meet their demand across the day, and then are procuring fuel to meet that need. This paradigm changes somewhat as you move to a regional day-ahead market. The market's portfolio of resources is much, much broader. It has significant penetration of variable energy resources, lots of storage resources, lots of hydro resources, lots of conventional generation, and a WEM balancing authority, or an EDAM balancing authority area in this case, trying to figure out where within that much broader portfolio their supply will sit and is likely to get scheduled is a challenge. We want to ensure that they are able to accurately figure out where, from a starting point, what they would expect going into the day-ahead market so that they can successfully procure fuel. Now, the second issue from talking with stakeholders is that there are differences in the rules of the gas providers in the broader West. There's differences on the rules about how gas needs to be taken off the pipelines. And there's also differences with gas infrastructure. Stakeholder discussion has highlighted that the existing day-ahead market participants, the CAISO BA, may have significantly more storage capability than balancing authority areas in the broader West. A lack of storage forces more procurement potentially out of the less liquid intraday or evening markets, which makes fuel procurement more challenging. Can we go to the next slide? So almost all the issues that the ISO and stakeholders have identified trace back to a fundamental misalignment between the gas and the electric market timelines. The electric market requires offers to be finalized at 10 a.m. It then runs and it publishes results at about 1 p.m. The next day, timely gas nomination cycle closes at 11 a.m., right in the middle of this electric market process. This means that to the extent that market participants are looking to procure their fuel from the timely next day cycle, they're doing so without fixed electric market awards. This generally is what we would term quantity uncertainty. But there's also pricing uncertainty. The ISO uses hub index prices for the purposes of calculating reference costs. These index prices are pulled in advance even of the day ahead market, let alone when the index is closed. It's usually around 8 a.m. So the reference cost calculations as their basis are using non-finalized index prices, which is some level of price uncertainty. It's important to note that these uncertainties can regularly be accounted for in supply offers that are made during normal conditions. And by normal, I mean competitive market conditions. The ISO would rely on the competition to ensure that supply offers are prudently formulated by whoever's offering into the ISO administered markets. The issue at play here, though, is that these uncertainties is how to reasonably capture these uncertainties during non-competitive supply conditions when the ISO has determined that structural market power may exist and reference cost offers may need to be used in lieu of the offers by suppliers. The ISO's traditional approach to this has been to provide additional flexibility in representing costs in these reference offers. That is generally along the lines that we're proceeding in this proposal that we're working through with stakeholders. And we've done this because both the ISO and FERC have investigated, does it make sense to align these market timelines? And the answer from a business perspective to date has been no. So the next best answer is let's have as much flexibility as possible and try to capture these costs where we can. Can we go to the next slide? So this figure should help to illustrate that misalignment that I talked about. Today is the 22nd. So right now, gas is being procured for the real-time operating day on the 24th. The day-ahead market for the 24th will not run until 10 a.m. tomorrow. So to the extent suppliers want to procure fuel early for delivery and for burn on the 24th, they're doing so between now and 11 a.m. tomorrow. What we can do to try to get them better information in this timeline to inform their fuel procurement is one of the elements of this proposal. The next issue is probably this line between the day ahead and the real time, and it's what is a reasonable reference cost for the ISO to use? We want to ensure that there is sufficient flexibility that suppliers are able to capture their costs in the reference costs that would be used by the ISO in case of mitigation. Knowing that the quantity uncertainty I talked about may force more of the procurement away from that timely nomination cycle, which is green here, into the orange evening nomination cycle, which from talking with stakeholders and the ISO's analysis has been found to be less liquid and much more volatile. Can we go to the next slide? So the direction of what the ISO is going to be proposing has been shaped by input from stakeholders and our Market Surveillance Committee. The Market Surveillance Committee has really emphasized the need for additional bidding flexibility for gas resources in the West for a lot of the reasons I've talked about. And they've also pushed the ISO to reduce unnecessary mitigation of gas resources. Now, the ISO has taken both of these recommendations to heart. The ISO, in a parallel initiative, the Price Formation Enhancements, is examining how it can refine its market power mitigation framework to try to ensure that when the ISO is determining that structural market power exists, it is more likely that it actually exists. Because to the extent we can get the mitigation right and aren't over mitigating, the reference costs that would be used become irrelevant. But where uncompetitive conditions may exist, the ISO is still looking to provide significant additional flexibility for gas resources to represent their costs. It has identified potential reforms, which it's planning to propose, and it will be requesting stakeholder feedback on. The ISO is also sharing a lot of additional analysis on how well the existing thresholds capture the regional gas volatility. This will be published in the upcoming straw proposal. And again, we invite stakeholder feedback on these results and whether they think this analysis means that the ISO is striking the right proposed reforms or if additional reforms may be necessary. Can we go to the next slide? So moving on to the actual elements of the proposal itself. First, the ISO will be looking to propose an update to its 2-day-ahead market process to provide advisory estimates of resource schedules. We will utilize the latest forecast data and supply offers to improve the accuracy of the market results. Here, the idea is, to the extent possible, we want to give EDAM balancing authority areas an idea about what their expected schedules may be so they can then engage in their fuel procurement and can incorporate this into their fuel procurement strategies. Our analysis has shown that the 2-day-ahead schedules for the California ISO BAA are on average within 5% of the day-ahead schedules, which to us indicates this is at least a reasonable starting point and baseline to inform fuel procurement strategies for our market participants. That said, this is an average. This does not capture all outliers. It's again, an average. So if we can go to the next slide. We are also looking to provide additional flexibility to represent costs during conditions of elevated uncertainty. Again, our goal here is to allow market participants to accurately represent their costs. We are going to propose additional bidding flexibility during periods of elevated uncertainty to hedge procurement risk. We are looking to allow negotiated commitment costs or blended fuel regions to better capture volatile or non-traditional fuel arrangements. And finally, we would look to create a new parameter to address regular volatility in liquid conditions at hubs where we can identify that. Can we go on to the last slide? The last element of the proposal is to standardize the existing reliability tools that the ISO has to manage gas burn. We have a constraint that allows fuel burn across a set of resources, usually correlated with the pipeline, to be managed directly within the market dispatch. FERC previously has stipulated very narrow conditions on which this constraint can be used. To use it, there is a ton of necessary coordination between the ISO, the gas pipeline operators, relevant reliability entities. What we are looking to do as part of this proposal is to develop a framework such that if any balancing authority area participating in ISO markets would have a similar need to use this constraint, there is an existing pathway for them to do so. Now that concludes my remarks on the Gas Resource Management Initiative, but I'd be happy to take any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Danny. Before we turn it to Lindsay Sheckleway from NV Energy, are there any questions from the governing body for Danny? I am not seeing any. So can we queue up Lindsay?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Okay, so hi, I'm Lindsay Schleckway, the Market Policy Director for NV Energy. I also would like to welcome Member Smith to the Western Energy Market Governing Body, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. NV Energy appreciates CAISO for initiating the Gas Resource Management Stakeholder Initiative to address persistent challenges within the EIM and to proactively consider gas management concerns in the forthcoming EDAM. We have actively supported this initiative by providing stakeholder feedback throughout the process and through direct discussions with members of the Market Surveillance Committee and CAISO staff to explain our specific concerns. Our primary concern stems from the misalignment between the timelines of the electric and gas markets. In an earlier discussion paper, CAISO noted that the current timing of the day-ahead market was intentionally positioned between the timely and evening gas nomination cycles to allow participants to reconcile day-ahead market awards. However, this structure does not work for NV Energy due to the significant reduction in liquidity between the timely and evening cycles in the Desert Southwest. This issue, already present in the EIM, is likely to be exacerbated under EDAM. Compounding this challenge is the limited amount of gas storage capacity that exists or is available in the Desert Southwest. This results in the reliance on illiquid gas cycles to balance nominations and meet market awards. CAISO has previously addressed storage limitation issues following the Aliso Canyon incident through a stakeholder initiative. In contrast, the Desert Southwest, where NV Energy operates, faces more limited storage constraints and also lacks the liquidity and gas cycles necessary to respond to day-ahead and real-time market outcomes. This misalignment raises the risk that the day-ahead market awards for gas-fired resources may fall outside the timely nominations, with subsequent cycles offering insufficient liquidity to meet those obligations. This creates a potential reliability risk not only for the market participants and their obligations to the balancing authority, but also for the pipeline. To be clear, we are not advocating for a change to the market timeline. Rather, we are requesting additional tools to help market participants manage this issue when needed. NV Energy supports the 3 high-level focus areas identified for the upcoming gas management initiative. We are encouraged by the development of comprehensive problem statements that reflect the core challenges participants face in managing gas nominations while engaging in the CAISO wholesale market. We believe this initiative scope should fully address these problem statements and encompass all relevant aspects of gas management. NV Energy is happy and encouraged to see that the proposed scope that has been presented here today will encompass bidding flexibility, a 2-day-ahead advisory schedule, and a reliability tool. While we have consistently supported the inclusion of a 2-day-ahead advisory schedule, we have also strongly advocated for enhanced bidding flexibility and the development of a reliability tool as essential components of a comprehensive solution. In conclusion, NV Energy remains optimistic that the stakeholder initiative will be collaborative and a productive process that leads to meaningful solutions for the gas management challenges identified. We extend our sincere thanks to the governing body for its continued support in this initiative. We also commend the Market Surveillance Committee for its proactive engagement early in the process, an approach we believe will significantly contribute to a successful outcome and one we hope to see replicated in future initiatives. Finally, we thank CAISO staff for their leadership and commitment to this effort, and we look forward to working together to develop solutions that best serve the market. Thank you, and that's all I have today.
Thanks, Lindsay. It looks like we have a hand up from member Decker. Do you have a question for Lindsay?
Okay.
So I don't have a question, but I do want to make a comment. So Lindsay, you're very generous in your applaud to the CalISO staff, but I also want to don't shortchange the credit that goes to the RIF for having a panel on this issue. And I believe you were part of that panel. And while the issue had been around for quite some time, I think it was the panel and the RIF bringing this forward in the RIF that really made it get addressed this time around. So I want to make sure that the RIF gets credit for its initiation of taking this up where it got more light. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Member Kanzioka, do you have a question or comment for Lindsay?
Comment, and Member Decker makes does a good job of highlighting a little bit of the history of why we've gotten to where we are today. And this was a commitment that CAISO made when EDAM was being approved, was to help address this issue. The Desert Southwest entities are uniquely situated as compared to other areas of the interconnection. And specifically NV Energy was pushing that this be addressed. And when this started off, we all know the challenges out there in addressing the gas electric coordination, and there wasn't any solutions. There wasn't any clear lines on where this would end up being to provide an outcome that provided usefulness. As Lindsay just stated, that what they were looking for was tools to help manage this. We know that there is no way to correct the issues that currently are there between the gas electric coordination. So it's tools to manage. And it's good to hear Danny's presentation and Lindsay's comment that after now these years of work, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that some form of outcome on tools is likely to be developed and presented for approval. And so just really positive kudos to both Danny on the team from Cal ISO and Lindsay and Riff for their input in helping to shape this.
Thank you, Member Kanzioka. I'm going to circle back to Danny if he had anything else he wanted to add before we go to public comment.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that it's been really encouraging to hear the feedback from Lindsay that we're directionally proceeding along the right track and offering more flexibility. And we really do want to commit to ensuring that all potential EDAM parties can successfully participate. I was remiss a little bit in my presentation. I realized I didn't address one thing that it's relevant to this discussion in the presentation, and that's the potential for the dynamic mitigation of commitment costs. That is a policy that has popped up here and has previously been discussed in ISO stakeholder initiatives. But since the stakeholdering of that original policy, we think both the market dynamics and footprint has changed enough that additional stakeholdering is warranted. I think we remain interested in doing that in partnering with stakeholders, but the intent, at least in this initiative or this phase of this initiative, is to try to figure out if there are lower hanging changes we can make around the flexibility with which suppliers can make offers that offer the immediate tools for successful market participation, while we then look to evolve our markets later on with more nuanced or dynamic tools.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks for that follow-up and clarification. Any additional questions or comments on this item? Okay, Silas, I will turn it to you to seek public comment.
If you would like to make a public comment, you can please press the raise hand icon at the bottom center of your Zoom screen, or if you're dialed into the phone only line, you can press #2 to enter the comment queue. And we do have one hand up in our queue already. Kathy Anderson, you have been sent the prompt to unmute yourself. You can please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Hopefully you can all hear me. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner and members of the Western Energy Markets Governing Body. My name is Kathy Anderson, and I'm the Senior Manager of Transmission and Markets at Idaho Power Company. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you. Idaho Power has been an active participant in the gas resource management topic, both at the working group level and during this current stakeholder initiative. We appreciate the CAISO staff taking the time to understand the differences between California gas resource requirements and non-California entity gas resource requirements. This is especially critical for entities like Idaho Power, who have access to multiple fuel zones, each with its own rules as well as its own constraints. These constraints and rules often drive the location and the price of the gas which is used to fuel our resources. We support the direction CAISO is heading in this initiative. The ability to have more flexibility in the reasonableness thresholds for not only the bids but also commitment costs is critical to ensure the ability to capture and recover the costs that we are exposed to in the market for our gas resources. We appreciate the CAISO staff's openness to understand and incorporate our feedback through this process, and we look forward to the continued collaboration with CAISO and other stakeholders on this extremely important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate your feedback on this topic. And Silas, is there anybody else?
We do not have any other hands up in the comment queue.
All right. Thanks everyone for walking through that and providing your comments. So I understand that Mr. Rodriguez has joined us, and we'll go back to our agenda item in our presentation on Imperial Irrigation District and their considerations for joining EIM and EDAM. And Paul, can you hear me? Oh, there you are.
Yes, I can, loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And apologies, I'm moving through the agenda faster than what was probably projected originally. So glad you could join us.
Very good. Well, good afternoon. Paul Rodriguez, Deputy Power Manager here at IED. Our presentation here is to give a little background on who we are, what we do, and some of the reasons we're joining both the EIM market and the extended day ahead market. Could you go to the next slide, please? So a little background, here's the agenda. Go a little background of our electric system, talk about our current generation portfolio, touch a little bit on our transmission system, and then we'll get into the reasoning for IED joining these markets. Next slide, please. So we have a very extensive service territory, about 6,400 square miles. We have 165,000 customers that we serve there. We are in California, but our load profile is more similar to those in the Arizona area. Very, very high peak loads in the summer, mostly inductive driven. So out of those 165,000 customers, about 85% of those are residential. We do have lots of transmission lines to serve this vast territory. So our residential customers are our key priority here. So right, ensuring lights stay on within this massive service territory is quite the challenge. So we leverage lots of technology to ensure we keep the lights on here in this region of the state. We have about 1,800 miles of transmission and about 5,200 miles of distribution. We do have a interconnected capacity of about 2,200 megawatts of generation, or just shy of 2,200 megawatts of generation, which makes us a net exporting balancing authority for most of the year. It's kind of unique for California, so we're exporting most of the year. We serve our load through about 62 substations, 25 distribution substations in the Coachella Valley area, and about 42 substations in our Imperial Valley area. The Coachella Valley area, that is in Riverside County, where we're actually seeing most of the growth. We have significant growth there. We have we're planning about 5 new substations there within the next 5 years to accommodate growth in that region. Next slide, please. So here's our generation portfolio. This is off our integrated resource plan. It's online, so it's about 1.5 years old. We have about 63% of our generation still comes from thermal. We're probably closer now to 20% on solar, 10% hydro, and we no longer have biomass. So our total geothermal has grown. We're closer to 8 to 10% on the geothermal side, which is local geothermal here, found south of the Salton Sea area. And we do have about 1% nuclear, which we bring in from PV West. The chart on the bottom kind of shows our targets. So we're on track to meet our targets there. Next slide, please. Here's a high overview of our transmission system. So south to us, we do have the Western River lines, North Gila to Palo Verde. North of us, we do have the Palo Verde Devers corridor. So we're right smack in the middle. We have transmission that connects from both of these major paths. Most of our transmission is on the 92 kV side. So that we sub-transmission / transmission that we have interconnected to our 230 and 161 kV systems. We have joint ownership on the 500 line south of us. So on the Southwest Power Link, we have ownership of those transmission lines. Our load split It's kind of 60% up in the Coachella area, so up in the north section of the map. We have 60% of our load with 40% on the southern end. Next slide, please. So we've been looking into joining the Western Energy Imbalance for some time. We did our first cost benefit analysis back in 2022, and we were actually hoping to join the market this year. We had some delays on mostly funding based on our end. We've got that squared away this year, so we're back on track to join both the EIM and EDAM. Next slide, please. So one of the reasons why we looked for concurrently joining both is one, staffing. So we're looking to bring on 21 new full-time employees for this initiative. Given that we also have our consulting resources on board with EIM, we decided it would be a good idea to join both EIM and EDAM, given that we're going out to obtain new staffing for the power department, and we have the consultants already on board. So that kind of led to the implementation into both markets. Like I said, we were looking into joining this back in 2022 with an in-service date of 2025, but now we're looking into an in-service date of 2028. A lot of stuff has changed since our initial assessments of the markets, but even though we're probably the county that's furthest away from Sacramento, we are still in California. So right, at this point in time, these two markets are the best options for the IAD. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we have looked at the other market, but just given our current situation and our ongoing cooperation with the California ISO at this moment, we believe that this is the better option for the district at this time. And I believe that concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions if anyone has any questions at this time.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for going through that. Governing body members, any questions? I am not seeing any. Oh, I'm going to go to member Kanzioka and then to you, Elliot.
Paul, thank you for this presentation. I got to tell you, over the 5.5 years I've been on the governing body, a regular question has been asked of the potential of having IID join the market. And so they've given us regular updates and the discussions that they've had with you. And it's great to see that IID is moving forward at this time. As you're well aware, the market performs better as the breadth and depth of that market participants increases. And so IID's participation is not going unnoticed, and that it will be a good player to have in that overall performance and providing that greater diversity. So I'm just glad that decision's been made. We're here to support you, and anytime that we have an opportunity to share with you, we are open. So thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Elliot?
Thank you, Chair Wagner. Well, first, I just wanted to thank Paul and Tricia for being here today and for their partnerships. We really appreciate these developments. And also, I just wanted to note for longtime historians of the California energy marketplace, as we noted back in our press release back in May, when IID announced their decision, when IID's participation begins in 2028, it will mark the first time that all California balancing authorities are participating in the ISO's energy markets. So we've got a unified California, everybody participating. It's a wonderful development. Really appreciate the partnerships. And of course, the entry of these two new partners, not only does it deliver tremendous value for their customers, but it's going to add even greater reliability, resilience, and economic value to the footprint, as was noted. So just want to thank you guys again and note this just really great milestone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. Any other comments from the governing body? So now I'll turn to Silas. Can you ask for public comment, please?
If you would like to make a public comment, you can press the raise hand icon at the bottom center of your Zoom screen or #2 on the phone only line. At this time, we do not have any hands up in our comment queue.
Thanks, Silas. I'm going to query the governing body. We have one more major agenda item. Would you like a break, a quick break, or would you like to continue on?
I'm okay if we continue on.
Anybody opposed to continuing on? Okay, I don't see any opposition in my informal query. Let's turn it back to Anna McKenna.
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon. On our agenda for this afternoon is also a briefing on policy initiatives. This is our continued briefings that we provide to you on pending stakeholder initiatives of interest. And we have Becky Robinson here today, our Director of Market Policy Design, who will be giving you the briefing. And with that, I will turn it over to Becky.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Just doing a quick sound check to make sure you can hear me okay.
We can.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the governing body. I will be providing an update on our market policy initiatives. Next slide, please. Thank you. So first up on EDAM congestion revenue allocation. You'll remember this item from the meeting in June, where we had published a final proposal at the beginning of June, and then brought this item for decision to the ISO Board of Governors and Western Energy Markets governing body on the June 19th meeting, where you approved that item. As a reminder, that proposal changes how we allocate congestion revenues between the BAs once EDAM starts up. Specifically related to congestion revenues associated with parallel flow and associated with the exercise of eligible transmission rights. So since that meeting, we have filed we have made a FERC filing to get that proposal in front of FERC, and comments actually were just due on that last week. And so we are reviewing those comments and thinking through whether there's anything in those that we should respond to further that docket along. But there was a good amount of support in the docket in terms of the comments received. You know, a fair amount of interest in continuing to think through longer term policy and one protest. But I think we were again we are now thinking through whether we need to answer any of that in the FERC docket. Any questions on that item? All right, not seeing any. Let's go to the next slide. So the next policy initiative is related to congestion revenue rights. And this initiative is still in the working group phase. We've covered a lot so far. We've talked about how the current program is structured and how it functions for stakeholders. We have looked at some in-depth analysis of how the market has been working recently, and in particular evaluating the effect of prior reforms to the CRR market. And we've heard how comparable products have been working in other ISOs and RTOs. So the group is really focused at this time on problem statements to tackle and hearing from stakeholders, hearing from multiple sides of the market, and formulating those problem statements. And I think this working group has one more meeting to kind of planned to sort of finalize work on those problem statements, and then we'll progress into sort of policy development, if you will, after that. Any questions on congestion revenue rights?
I'm not seeing any.
All right, next slide. Okay, next up, storage design and modeling. So this initiative, again, is pretty broad. It's covering 4 key topic groups that are listed there. I won't mention all of those specifically, but I do want to note that this initiative has been marking some incremental progress, which is good to see. We're moving forward on the first of those topic groups on outage management. We put out an issue paper and straw proposal on that topic. Really focused on sort of outage management in the sense of some unique attributes of storage, right? So related to state of charge, related to how batteries can behave a little differently towards the top and bottom range of their state of charge being really full or getting close to empty. So some unique attributes of storage to work through on outage management, which was a topic that stakeholders had prioritized for getting to shared mutual understanding of how that should work and how the ISO wants to hear from resource owners on that front. We are also making progress on the fourth of the 4 topics, the mixed fuel and distributed level resources, where we published a discussion paper last month on that topic. So happy to see those 2 topics both moving forward. And discussions are continuing on the other topics as well, on uplift, or that's bid cost recovery and default energy bids, as well as on state of charge management. So also of note, we did implement a change and a constraint in the market optimization related to state of charge and the flexible ramp product. We wanted to make sure that when the market optimization is counting on battery resources to provide flexible ramp out in future intervals from where we are right now, we wanted to make sure that we're verifying that they've got that we anticipate them having state of charge to provide those awards out in the future, and that we're taking that into account in the optimization. So we put that in place in June, I believe, and my colleague Guillermo and his team reported out on how that's been going at the last Market Performance and Planning Forum. And I think the short answer on that is so far so good, but we will continue to monitor that update to make sure that what we're seeing from the market results makes sense. So any questions on storage?
Yeah, we have a question from member Kanzioka.
Hi, Becky. Thank you for covering all these items, and it's always great to hear the whole breadth of what's going on. I have a question under the scope. You've mentioned the 4 major areas, and I know you weren't trying to make a grocery list here. But within there, is bid cost recovery being addressed as well? You know, we've had that ongoing conversation on that issue, and I just want to know if that's being captured.
Yes, great question. So uplift is a term that we use sort of synonymous with bid cost recovery, but it's a little more informal. So I appreciate you highlighting that topic. As yes, we brought that item for approval last November, I believe, for storage bid cost recovery, and that is scoped into this initiative. It is the sort of topic where I think we wanted to put more on the table in terms of basically how is it that storage units get taken in the market relates to many things, a lot of different things. And so it is scoped in. There are conversations going on around that topic, and I hope that we have more to report on kind of where we're going on that particular element later on this year.
Becky, thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions or comments on storage design and modeling? Let Becky take a sip of water and carry on.
All right. Thank you. Next up, demand and distributed energy market integration. So this working group is still pretty early, and it's getting going in terms of working groups, hearing from stakeholders. When this got kicked off, we did an initial pass of what are all the areas of interest that stakeholders want to explore. And you see those here on the slide under those stakeholder problem statement development topics. And the working group has just been kind of taking each of those in turn as a bucket where, each is its own bucket of issues where stakeholders are our committee of the working groups presenting, sort of sharing pain points and lived experience and opportunities for getting more participation from these kind of resources. So that's been a productive effort so far, but still pretty early in the process. And we are targeting starting to move into policy development towards the end of this year on this topic. Any questions on demand and distributed energy?
I don't see any.
All right. Great. So price formation enhancements then. So we have been internally working on developing a straw proposal for scarcity pricing and market power mitigation at the balancing area level. These are topics that we had been talking with stakeholders about a good bit up until the springtime. We took a little bit of a break in light of the congestion revenue allocation work and need to stakeholder that. But the team has been continuing to work internally, and we are hoping to publish that later this month, which is really soon. So of note, we will be incorporating some suggestions from a recent market surveillance committee public meeting on market power mitigation. In particular, they had some great suggestions for things that we should consider in terms of moving to this grouping approach where we're not just evaluating each BA individually, but sort of looking at what are the relevant groups where there's not price separation between the BAs, and so we can consider that a bigger competitive market essentially, and hopefully reduce unnecessary mitigation. So stay tuned on that front, and hope to have that straw proposal out soon, and we'll be looking forward to market participant and stakeholder feedback on that. Any questions on price formation?
Yeah, Vice Chair Campbell.
Yeah, thank you, Becky. A timeline question. I think the July and the first bullet kind of jumped out at me. There's no sort of decision on the calendar right now for 2025 on these issues. I guess what's going to be happening between July and for the rest of the year, broadly speaking, and what's the time frame for something coming forward to the bodies?
Yeah, great question. So we I think hope to get the straw proposal out, get feedback on it, and iterate through the rest of Q3 and maybe even Q4, depending on the feedback. I think we would hope to. I would say I would hope that this is positioned to come for a decision maybe early in 2026, if that makes sense. But I think we would be hoping to take. Yeah, it sort of depends on the level of feedback and how well we hit the mark. But yes, I would say this isn't one where we're hoping to get a decision in front of you by the end of the year, but I think it should be well positioned to do that in early 2026.
Any other questions for Becky on price formation? Oh, Member Decker.
Yeah, thank you. So Becky, I'm looking at that first bullet. It says internally developed straw proposal for scarcity pricing. So I think stakeholders have been involved somewhere. When I read internally designed, it looks like the ISO will develop something and we'll throw it out there and see who throws rocks at it. And then we'll take it back in and massage it some more. Tell me about internally developing the straw proposal.
Yes, great point. So let me dispel some of that at least. So yes, you are absolutely right. Stakeholders have been involved, and we've had a number of working groups on these issues with stakeholders over the course of the last year, I'll say, and probably before then as well. So the reference to internally developed is really, I guess, noting that, really trying to convey there simply that we have had a little bit of a hiatus in working groups on this topic, again, because of the congestion revenue allocation item. But I think it's a good thing that the team hasn't stopped working and has continued to develop, work to get a straw proposal on paper to get in front of stakeholders. I don't think there will be too many, I don't expect there'll be surprises there, but I do think, you know, I do think we, you know, to your point, we haven't talked about this with stakeholders in a couple of months. And so there might be sort of a bigger batch of feedback or more need to kind of walk through what the rationale is in order to pick up those conversations. But I don't think it is, you know, all the topics that are in there have been discussed with stakeholders. So I do want to make that clear.
Okay. I just don't want to see us go backwards with stakeholder engagement. So I'm hoping we're not going to hear that kind of feedback.
Yeah, same here. Same here. And I think, you know, I do want to say we are very open to feedback. So this is a, you know, if we didn't hit the mark, we want to hear that and incorporate that into where we go next, or maybe even kind of reframing things if we need to. So appreciate that feedback.
Not to beat a dead horse here, Becky, but it's not, it's, for me, it's not do stakeholders like it or not. It's how much was stakeholder developed in it versus the ISO developing it. That's my point. So that's what I want to be careful of, that it's not perceived, even if it's been talked about, there's no surprises, that we don't hear from stakeholders. The ISO took the pen. We didn't really see this beforehand, and then here we are. That to me would be going backwards. So just however that rolls out.
Okay, I appreciate that feedback. All right. Next up, greenhouse gas coordination. So this working group has been really focused on thinking about state policies that require GHG reduction, carbon reduction, but do that without having a price or a tradable allowance structure. And so the working group has been designing a policy on how to do we're calling it an accounting and reporting approach. It is after the market runs, it doesn't actually influence the market optimization itself, but simply a report that the ISO would put out afterwards that would take into account both contract information we're getting from market participants as well as market dispatch. So we've been working with a subgroup and the working group itself to really develop the report format. We put out a straw proposal in Q2 and actually followed that up with a draft final proposal just last week. And so we are hoping that, hoping to kind of, to bring that for you potentially in the September meeting. The slide here is a little bit outdated. We've been having conversations about, you know, internally about, this is a report that the ISO produces. Do we need a tariff change on this or not? The latest of where we are on that is that it may not be a tariff change. This may just be a report that the ISO can add to its list of information that we put out into the world and provide to stakeholders and market participants. In which case, if that's the case, then in September, we are thinking we would bring this as an informational update to let you know what the report is about and the process leading up to that and the needs that it's serving, though it may not be a decisional item per se. Any questions on greenhouse gas coordination?
Member Kanzioka.
Becky, you kind of touched on the part that I'm interested in inquiring about, and that is the tariff authority on the funding. Could you just elaborate a little bit more? That I know that you haven't determined yet if it is, but if it is, what is that basic framework that's needed to be changed, and what funding?
So the funding was just meant to reference, you know, there is a cost associated with all of the work that the ISO does, and there has been some discussion of is this a report that will be sort of general information that we will be appreciated by many, all our market participants, stakeholders, and observers? Or is this sort of something where there are, individual companies who would sort of be requesting this, perhaps on a a basis where we would charge them directly for the service provided? But we've had sort of, we've considered it, I guess, from both sides, potentially, but I think where we're going is that this is, feels like a report that is information that people might want to know about the market. So today we put out average emissions rates, for instance, by market interval, to let folks know, what is the emissions intensity of energy that you are consuming from the grid in any interval. I think, we did that without bringing a tariff change, without sort of thinking about the cost of producing that information. And I think our latest thinking is that this would fall into a similar bucket in terms of information that we are compiling, putting together, and trying to make sense of what's happening in terms of market dispatch, and as well as, what we hear from market participants in terms of, their contracting, and coming up with, at bottom, sort of a data set that represents the emissions of sort of the residual supply on the system after you take into account what's attributed, what's contracted, and so forth. So I think it is going to be, a report that the ISO puts out that'll be for general consumption information, like the average emissions data.
So you're kind of faced with one, you just have that as an internal cost to do the data gathering and publishing reports, and if you don't do that, then it's to do it. It's on a it may be on a contract basis or a bilateral basis, or maybe there's a tariff that small tariff charge that covers that cost, and it's collected through the tariff to produce all the work. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So then here we have just an update on our policy initiatives catalog and roadmap. We are in that annual process where we've just published the 2025 catalog, which consists of suggestions from stakeholders that they would like the ISO to consider as far as policy initiatives to take on for next year. That was published last month. And the next milestone on this will be to see draft and final roadmaps later this year in Q4. And in the meantime, we will be kind of thinking through what are those suggestions from stakeholders? How do they, how should we consider them in terms of thinking about the work on our plate in 2026 and for the next 3 years? Any questions there?
I don't see any questions.
All right. Well, here we have our updated policy calendar for the rest of this year, where you will see a few items that we are hoping to bring for decision later this year, including the gas resource management item that Danny gave an update on just earlier this afternoon. And if we can go to the next slide. You can see where those items are in their development. And then I think there's one more. And this is the items not under primary authority. So this is showing the different tracks of our resource adequacy initiative. And then I think after this slide, we have a little bit more detail on resource adequacy, but again, including that here just for informational purposes. So any final questions for me?
Governing body members, any questions for Becky? I have one, and this is me just being a planner. Gas resource management Q4. decisional item? Is that a tariff change? Do we know what that will look like? Any thoughts on that? Or
Yeah, I think we do expect there to be some tariff changes there. Maybe also some elements of the proposal that are valuable process enhancements, but I think among the package of things, some of those will involve tariff. So we are tentatively aiming for the October meeting to bring those for decision.
you answered my next question before I asked it. Great. Anything else for Becky? Okay, thanks. You get to leave. Oh, wait, Anita.
So not a question for Becky per se, but I'm looking at our informational reports and just a thought, and it's in regard to the market performance. I think things that are in the market performance that particularly identify, changes in pricing, that pricing's been lower, that really are part of that good news story for the WEIM. I think those are worth having a slide in our presentation somewhere versus it's in the informational report. So just maybe a future reference. It doesn't have to be the whole everything market update, but just the things that really do demonstrate the value of the WEIM.
That's good feedback.
Thanks, Anita. And I don't want to jump to that agenda item yet because we still need to do public comment on the briefing on the policy initiatives. So Silas, could you open it up for public comment?
If you would like to make a public comment, you can press the raise hand icon on Zoom or #2 on the phone line. At this time, there are no hands up in our comment queue.
Thank you, Silas. Next agenda item is informational reports. Does anybody have any question on those reports? And Anita, you just flagged a comment about kind of highlighting the good news out of those reports. If there's something that should be higher up in our presentation and not buried in the reports. Chair Konzioka? I mean, God.
Yeah.
Known as.
Member. Yeah. He's been demoted. I too, the market performance update report got my attention as well, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And again, it kind of bleeds into 11 future agenda items. It may be worthwhile to have that material covered or even an update of that in our September meeting. So just want to flag that as a possibility.
Now I'm on mute. Anything else on informational reports? Okay. And I think Member Konzioka just noted a future agenda item. Anybody else have any future agenda items? Excellent.
Just on that note, this is Mark Rotheder. Would it be okay if we incorporate that into the benefits report, quarterly benefits report? May fit well in there.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. There's a lot of information in there that it would be helpful just to have some additional explanation in there and coverage. Also it caught Member Becker's attention as well, and yeah, very good.
Okay, we'll endeavor to do that and see if it fits in. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. Any other future agenda items? Great. With that, thank you everyone for your time and attention today. We are adjourned.